welcome to another episode of the Pixelated Sausage Show. Hi. How are y'all doing? Hopefully, well, I am, of course, your host, Mark Krishnez, and today I've got quite a few games to talk about. It's a very management simmy week, it seems. It just happened to be that way. Because we've got Dungeons of Hinterberg. Dungeons of Hinterberg, which isn't a management sim game. But then we have, I forget how they pronounce his name, Naheulbeuk's Dungeon Master? Let's School. Those are both management games. Lifeless Moon, not. Punch Club 2, Fast Forward, not so much. And then Parkitect Deluxe Edition. Yes, a bunch. But before we get to all that, I tried watching the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, the first movie that recently got a 4K release, UHD Steelbook edition, because I was curious. A few weeks or so ago, maybe a month ago at this point, I tried watching the first episode of the show because I don't think the first movie was available on Paramount at the time, but I could have been wrong because there's a bunch of SquarePants, SpongeBob, Reverse It shit on there, but I couldn't make heads or tails of what was what. But I was curious about whether or not I would like it because, believe it or not, I had never seen a single second of anything SpongeBob related. I played a bit of the rehydrated. Well, I played a bit of the two remasters. I'm not sure if the second one was a remaster or something new. But I played a few hours of those games and thought they were fine from a gameplay standpoint, but the humor that I experienced didn't really do anything for me, and I was curious how it would fare in its original form. I made it about halfway through that first episode and couldn't take any more of it. I didn't find any of it funny, and the animation reminded me a lot of the stylings of Ren and Stimpy, but of a lower quality. It didn't look bad by any means, but it reminded me of this other show and was not as good. Even though I'm not a huge Ren and Stimpy fan from a content standpoint. And the art, with its affinity for gross shit, wasn't exactly my jam, but from a fidelity standpoint or a quality standpoint, hard to deny that. But getting to the point, I decided to check out the movie because you would assume with a movie, and it probably is this way, but with a movie, you would want to put your best feet forward, have it look the best, be the funniest, etc. And I lasted about 16 minutes before I had to shut it off because I just don't understand SpongeBob at all. It is one of the things that I am most baffled by because I don't find any of it funny. I don't get it. Why? It's just a perfect example of how, more than anything in terms of entertainment, comedy is incredibly subjective. And this comedy just does not work for me. And I think it's weird because I feel like there's a cross-section that is quite populated amongst people who really like SpongeBob and really like Arthur. And I like Arthur. I haven't gone back to watch Arthur, so I may not like it now as an almost 40-year-old. But during my younger years where I was still too old for Arthur, I liked Arthur. I don't know why. I can't think back on it and say this is why I liked Arthur. I just know I liked it. I also loved Wishbone, which isn't animated. And I was of the demographic at the time, I'm pretty sure. I can't remember exactly when Wishbone came out, but I loved Wishbone. What's the story of Wishbone? I don't care what the story is. Just tell me. Tell me in your cute little... I don't like dogs. I like that dog. And I had the Robin Hood Wishbone plushie. And then at some point, my grandpa on my dad's side threw away all my stuffed animals, including the Wishbone, Robin Hood, and my very first plushie stuffed animal, more so, of the... Is it a Bronchiosaur? I don't know dinosaur names, but the main character from Land Before Time, the main dinosaur, the brown long neck. Bronchiosaurus just came out of my head, but I don't know. Because I know it's not a Stegosaurus. And it's not a rhinoceros. It's not a dinosaur. I don't know shit about dinosaurs, right? I guess I liked them when I was a kid. But that did not... I still like the Jurassic World movies. Why did I say that? Oh my god. The Jurassic Park movies. Jurassic World is a part of the park, but it's the Jurassic Park movies which World is a part of, not the Jurassic World movies where Park is a part of. Park is a part of. That's a fucking not twin twister. But that did not translate to adulthood, really. Dinosaurs are cool, I guess. You know what's cooler? Tigers. Nothing can top a tiger. And the current tigers are better than saber-tooth tigers. Saber-tooth tigers are boring. They're kind of cool, but they're also, from a visual standpoint, But SpongeBob, back on that. Why? I would genuinely love to get some comments on why you like SpongeBob. Something more in-depth than just, I like it because I think it's funny. Because obviously that's why you like it. But what do you find funny about it? I'm curious. But humor is very subjective, as I will reiterate later on when talking about some of these games that attempt humor, which is usually not great in games. I find that in gaming especially because you, in many senses, or not many senses, in many cases, the humor is very reliant on the text, the dialogue. They don't utilize the visual side of humor, which is a big part of it, even in subtle ways, the way characters react to other characters. To bring up an example that may seem a bit weird, The Rundown, which is a fantastic, underrated, underappreciated, more so underappreciated than underrated movie that is better than any Indiana Jones movie. Come at me. But in that movie, there's a scene where The Rock is in a bar to take Sean William Scott back to his father. It's early on. Is confronted by Christopher Walken, who is the main antagonist of the movie. And he's got with him a whip boy. A boy who is not a boy but a man with a whip. And he is basically saying to The Rock, I got shit with this guy that if you want whatever with them, you have to come through me. I'm the big boss here. And they have their little confrontation, and he sends his whip boy to give him a little slappy slap. And when the guy with the whip cracks it, instead of it slapping the rock across the face or whatever is gonna do, he catches it with his hand. And then there's this kind of tug of war between the two. And the dude with the whip has another whip, and he's gonna bust that out shortly. But this has never happened, and you know that because of the expression on Walken's face when he sees what's going on. And that's not laugh out loud funny, but it is a very amusing scene, and it tells you a lot as well about The Rock, Walken, this whip guy, and it works because of the visual side of things. You don't get that enough in games. They typically rely on dialogue, on the writing. And this is part of why, especially those early Lego games that were silent, worked quite well, because they really got the physical side, and they were limited in that way, but they really knew how to work that well. And then when they added dialogue, there was humor there too, but it kind of lost a bit of its way, I think. But anyway, SpongeBob. I don't get it. And then I rewatched the Hulk, or just Hulk, I think it is, the Ang Lee Hulk movie, which I still really, really like. There are some problems with it, but overall, I really like it. And I like it a lot more than the Incredible Hulk with Ed Norton, because the Ed Norton movie throws away character and story and anything relating to that in favor of action, whereas the Ang Lee movie, unsurprisingly because it's Ang Lee, is more character driven. However, the action is on the weak side. I like some moments in it. I like the tank throw. Not exactly action, but I still think, as dated as it looks, as not great as Hulk looks most of the time, when he busts out of that water chamber, that still looks great. But the action is weak. The attempt to integrate comic book panels into the cinematography is admirable, but in both the editing and the way those scenes transition, doesn't work that well. It's not executed as well as it could have been. But it doesn't take anything away. It doesn't add anything, but it doesn't take anything away. But the action, one, is weak. And then the father storyline is a mixed bag. From an emotional standpoint, he makes for a fantastic antagonist. But from a physical standpoint, it doesn't work as well. One, I don't have a problem with the Hulkified dogs. I don't care. It's fine. It's whatever. That's another thing. Doesn't really add anything. I don't think it takes anything away. But the big fight at the end is very visually just, it's nothing. But at the same time, when I think about it, as someone who doesn't know anything about Hulk from a comic standpoint, I don't know what his cast of villains look like. But what do you do with a Hulk antagonist outside of something like Abomination, which is just here's Hulk, but they got bits of rock sticking out of him or wherever the fuck the Abomination is? I don't know what you do with Hulk. Besides, it feels like the main antagonist to really play with a Hulk movie or storyline is his internal struggles, is him battling himself. is the battle between Bruce Banner and Hulk. So I don't know what you do there. But I still quite enjoy that movie. Then I've been making my way through Psych, of course, and really enjoying that. Still, I am in the early episodes of season 6, so I got 3 more seasons left, and then there are 3 movies, and then I'll be done, ready to move on to I don't know what next. I've been itching for Star Trek again, so maybe that rewatch is finally upon us, but maybe not. Anywho, let us get on to what I've been playing, starting with Dungeons of Hinterberg. This is a bit of an action, not so much adventure game. I don't know exactly what the genre I would call it. It's not really a rogue in any sense, but it feels like there are rogue elements of what we think of in rogue games these days. But the way it is structured is you play this young woman who feels a bit stuck in her life, doing the daily grind, going to work and doing all that, and decides to take a vacation to this town, this village of Hinterberg, where a bunch of dungeons showed up that are full of these monsters and whatnot that you can explore and get a bit of dungeoning in. It reminds me a little bit of a recent anime, Solo Leveling, where a bunch of these doors would spawn in the real world and certain people with certain affinities would be able to explore them and protect the people who do not have such awakenings. But that's not the case here. Anyone can go here. You gain magic in specific areas that are tied to that area that allow you to fight and also solve puzzles. In the first area, you get a giant bomb you can conjure, which can open up pathways by destroying rock structures, and a ball on a chain that you can use to pull certain things down and create new paths. But you can also use them in combat. And it's a half game between going exploring in these areas and finding chests and stuff like that, collecting some resources that you can use to presumably craft some stuff eventually, but also sell goods at stores and buy goods. And then go into these dungeons that are both puzzly and action-centric. The action, I don't love. It's very slow. The dodge feels especially slow and not super responsive. The combat itself isn't particularly satisfying. When you are using your magic, you have to be very careful because there are no iframes tied to it, and the animations can be quite long, and I don't believe you can cancel out of them. But at the same, it's not particularly challenging, and I believe you can. Yeah, I just remembered one of the things I do like and appreciate, because it makes a game that you could find very frustrating, potentially, depending on your proficiency or other factors. One of the accessibility options, there are only 3, I believe, and one of them had to do with screen shake, I think, and something else in that realm. But the third accessibility option is that no matter what, your character can't drop below 1 HP. So basically, you're invulnerable. I love stuff like that because it opens up this game, and any game like this, it would open it up to all players. For instance, if my dad was still playing games And if he was struggling with this game, he would be able to play and not have a problem. I love that. I know there are certain people who still look at these types of things and get bothered by it like they're being forced. If it exists, then I gotta use it. That's not how it works. It's just an alternative option. It's just there for people who do need it. Just because it's there doesn't mean you have to use it. Doesn't mean you have to engage with it. It's better to have more options than fewer or less. I hate that is one of the things I hate. Fewer and less. I think the way I always forget the differentiation. I think fewer is for when you can count, and less is when you can't count the number. But I could be mixing them up. Anywho, I love that. But I don't really love the comment. And it's a bummer because I do like the structure of this game. One, it also looks very nice. It has a comic book aesthetic and utilizes Ben-Day dots a lot, which is a good look to it. I don't love the character designs and enemy designs. I find the enemy designs pretty boring and uninspired and bland, and all the ones I've discovered up until this point, none have been interesting. And the human designs are fine, but I don't love them. And the color palette, there's something about it where there's just this slight opposite of popping. I'm trying to think of the exact term I would use for these particular aesthetic, but I don't love it. But from a stylistic standpoint, I do think it looks nice. But I like the structure because the way it works is that you do your little dungeon runs and you're exploring the areas where the dungeons are. And there are maybe close to 30 dungeons. And every time you complete a dungeon, you get a little stamp in your stamp book. And when you complete a dungeon, you'll get a boost to, I don't know if you always get a boost to HP, but you get some kind of boost to your character. But when you're not dungeoning and you're in town, you can go and visit stores and do all that kind of stuff. But there are a bunch of characters you will meet and grow relationships with in a very Persona-esque way. And as you spend time with these characters and develop these relationships and grow affinity for them and become closer to them, depending on your relationship status with them, you will gain certain perks. So this ice cream lady, I believe, I hung out with her because the level 1 perk for becoming acquainted with her was improved stamina for my dodge roll, and I really wanted that. So hung out with her, had a good chat, had a good time. Our relationship grew, and I got that perk. So you have this whole relationship aspect of the game where you are building relationships, connecting with the townsfolk and other visitors. And it makes the town feel a bit more lively. It gives it more personality and character and gives you a reason to spend time there. The one kind of drawback is that it means, because they let you know in your little journal when you meet someone what the first level perk will be, and then when you've obtained that, it'll show you what the next perk will be. And it makes it so that you're not spending time with characters because you want to spend time with them, but because they will give you something you want, which is nice in that you're not wasting your time hanging out with someone who's going to give you something you don't want, but then you're also hanging out with people maybe you don't like just because they will give you something you want. So it's a bit of a story / character versus gameplay standpoint kind of balancing act that you have to mess with, you have to deal with. Because there's a character, for example, who, if I hung out with them, the first perk I would get for becoming acquainted with them would be unlocking photo mode. And when I saw that, I immediately said, well, I know someone I will never be hanging out with, because what the fuck do I want? What's more important for me? More stamina for my dodge roll or photo mode? More stamina for my dodge roll. Fuck photo mode. I'm not gonna take pictures in this game. I never use photo mode. So maybe their level 2 perk is really, really good. But maybe it's just video mode. In which case I really don't want it. So that's a bit of a good bad thing. I like knowing, so I'm not wasting my time. But then there's just characters that I won't hang out with, even if I think when I am first introduced to them, hey, you seem cool, I want to hang out with you for story reasons. But then I'm gonna be missing out on being able to hang out with this person who's gonna give me something cool. I think they're a bit of a douchebag, but I'm gonna hang out with the douchebag for this sweet perk, because sweet perk. But it's fine. It's not too challenging from a puzzle or combat standpoint, and there are the accessibility options specifically for combat, related to combat. But it's fine. It seems very, very easy though on many fronts. There's platforming to it, but the platforming, especially climbing, is so... It makes the climbing in Uncharted feel more free, because you have specific little bits of the thing that have the white outline that lets you know, hey, you can climb to this, and you're just pressing A to move from one to one. There's no thought or anything behind any of it, so it feels almost like, why is this even here? But it's there. But it's all right. I'll play some more at some point. I don't know if I'm gonna play more now. I think it'll be something I come back to. Could be a future to add the backlog game potentially, because it's pleasant. It's a nice kind of melding between your more dungeon crawling action game and a bit of a cozy simulator. It's a very pleasant game. It doesn't do anything super great, but everything combines for an overall decent little package. Next up, we have Naheulbeuk's Dungeon Master. Pronunciation notwithstanding. I believe this is playing off of that Dungeon Keeper series, which I've never played myself. This is a management game where you are creating your own dungeon, I guess. But in my 3-ish hours with it, where I was still getting shoved tutorials down my throat, one, it is very, very talky in the campaign. My God, it just won't shut up. And I find so much of it annoying, not funny. I don't like these characters. The voice acting is all right. But when they are introducing new aspects of the game and wanting me to go through this little tutorial, they will fucking give me a prompt for more dialogue before I can even finish what I'm currently working on. And I'm just like, fucking cool it. Can I fucking do this first? Let me finish this. But my real problem with the game is, and I don't know how Dungeon Keeper was, but in thinking of similar games I've played, I believe Evil Genius was of this vein, where you were more a super villain and you are trying to protect your base from spy intruders and the like. What I don't like about Dungeon Master, as someone is shooting off fireworks, I swear to God, my neighborhood, it is like it's not even like, there are fireworks being shot off at least once a week. I don't know if it's some sports thing, because the Cubs suck. I mean, the Cubs are okay. They're in the middle of the road. The White Sox suck. What are you shooting off fireworks for? Fucking, there's some that they shoot it off in the middle of the night. What are we doing here? It's not a holiday. They stopped. Okay. But what I don't like about this game is that you're barely making a dungeon. What you're really doing is creating this whole system for... It just feels like a regular management game. Here, I'm going to make this bar where people can come by and buy some grub and drink and make some money off of that. Here's a little recreational area for my guards. Here's a guard spot. Here's this. And I feel like I'm just building a bunch of typical crap. And then when adventurers invade every now and again, my guards will come out of their little guard post, attack them, and then that... I want to create a dungeon full of traps and a labyrinthine path where I'm guiding the adventurers through this thing and seeing how they fare against my design. And maybe that's where the game eventually goes, but it is taking its sweet time in getting there, because I have to do all this busy work in order to get the reputation of being a dungeon worth exploring. And it just feels incredibly tedious. It works very well with a gamepad. I think the UI and navigating all of that, which is something that is often quite poorly executed in a lot of these games on a gamepad, that's really good here. I like that a lot, but I'm not enjoying the actual creating of my dungeon up until this point. And I don't know how much I have left in me, because I want to get to that point. I want to get to the point where I'm really crafting a dungeon and getting to see more creative ways of dealing with adventurers, as opposed to just, here they come. All right, let me put up some traps and alarms so that my guards are made aware of their presence when they enter. All right, now let me just watch them attack each other. Okay, that's it. There are additional things. There are raids you can send troops on for reasons that I didn't care about. I don't know. I'll see. At the very least, I can't stress enough the fact that it plays so well on controller is a very strong thing for it. It makes up for a lot of its other deficiencies and makes it so that I am more willing to get over that hump, try to get over that hump, see if there is sunshine on the other side of the hump. Is the green grasser there? Is the green grasser? Yeah. What? Fuck. I'm out of my mind. But I'm willing to give it some more time. So we'll see. But that's Naheulbeuk's Dungeon Master. Let's School is something I really wanted to like. I love the look of it. It has this very polygonal, paper crafty feel to it all, but it feels very impersonal so far. Very the problem with the game, so you are taking over as headmaster for this dilapidated school. You start off by creating one classroom, getting some students, building it out gradually, doing little simple things like making bathrooms and a little tea room, and just wanting to get your students who've you admitted and your one teacher to pass their exams so they can advance and the reputation of your school can increase and you can expand and become a better school. One of the issues, before I get to the main issue, is that as much as the visuals give it personality, that's pretty much where it stops. When your students are in class and the teacher is giving their lesson plan, there are little speech bubbles that pop up. They are so repetitive. It just says the same shit over and over and over again. And that shit that is in there, not really interesting or funny or any. It's just, okay, first, ... Next, ... I see, ... It's just the most bland dialogue possible, to the point where, why is it even there? Why are you putting this flavor in there when it is the most flavorless shit in the world? The real problem with the game is that it is so unwieldy and frustrating to navigate these menus, deal with anything on a controller. Whereas, I was just talking about Dungeon Master, how well it feels on controller. This is the opposite. This feels terrible. And after maybe about an hour, I just couldn't take it anymore. I was driving myself crazy, trying to go through all these menus and navigate with a gamepad. It's just, there's so much. It's so cumbersome. The UI, it's a mess. And I couldn't take it anymore. So I want to like it, but what I experienced didn't give me a good reason to persevere and overcome the frustrations of menu navigation and all that with the controller. I'd be curious to try it with a mouse and keyboard and see how it goes there. I really wish, but I don't think a lot of games have taken advantage of it. But I would love it if more games had mouse and keyboard support on controller, or not on controller, on console. Because for games like this, that would be great to just have that option. So, but that's cool. Then we have Lifeless Moon, which is a game that is incredibly ambitious, but it doesn't quite come together. I have to believe this is from a small developer. You wake up some kind of crash or something, but you're on the moon and you're trying to find your crewmates. And quickly things start getting weird. You see this old-timey town appear on the moon, and then there's this base, and you are discovering these supernatural elements. And from a story standpoint, a narrative standpoint, it's interesting, it's intriguing. You will find notes all over the place that give you little bits of information here and there. And all of that is something I'm curious about. But from a gameplay standpoint, it's pretty freaking dull. It also doesn't look that great. The production value is not good at all. But from a gameplay standpoint, all it's been is walking around, jumping every now and again, which doesn't feel that great. And then this kind of point and click adventure thing when you get into buildings where it goes into first person, and then the navigating that space doesn't feel that great. And there's not really that much to do. It's very linear in terms of what is even available. So there's not much challenge there. And there's a lot of back and forth going around, finding a key that'll open up this door to that building, and then finding a key in there that'll let you go into this building, finding another key. All right. All of it, even when you're not in point and click adventure first person mode, it just feels very fetch questy. So the gameplay doesn't really intrigue in the same way the story does. When I was playing, I was thinking to myself, man, if this was a Remedy game, ooh, I appreciate the ambition of this game, but it just doesn't end up coming together, unfortunately. So I'm not super compelled to keep playing past the hour and a half or so I put into it. In Punch Club 2, fast forward, I don't think this game does a great job of tutorializing itself. So there's a new DLC, but I had not played the original game, and I don't think it does a good job of telling you what you should be doing, how you should be managing your time and your resources, because I'm pretty sure if you don't do things, or if you do a few certain things, and maybe it's very hard to do this, and you would know not to do this, but I'm pretty sure there is a way you could not hard lock it, where you could fuck yourself over and have to restart because you spent your money on this thing, and then you can't buy food, and then you can't get the energy, so you can't do this, and you can't work because you don't have the energy, and then, all right, start over. But the way the game works is you are playing this. It seems to start at the end or be very tied to Punch Club 1, and it just throws you in and say, all right, here's some backstory. Okay, fine, sure, cool. But you are working out every now and again to improve your stats. You're working at various jobs to gain money, and you may get some bonuses as well from that. And then you are going through this boxing, what do you call it, ladder of progressively harder opponents in a combat system that is auto battler-ish. You, between rounds, can set up what your moveset will be. So in the beginning, I don't know if you can expand this, but you have 3 offensive actions, and at the beginning you only have a punch and a kick, and then 2 defensive actions. You don't have any right away, but you quickly gain the ability to unlock both a block and a dodge, and then a special perk, something along those lines, which I have not unlocked. And you set up how you want this to do. So do you want to do punch, kick, punch, kick, kick, punch, 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 block, dodge, block, block, dodge, dodge, and so on. And then when you've finished setting up your game plan, you watch the round play out and hope for the best. However, I don't understand what I should be doing there. Why should I pick punch, kick, punch, or punch, kick, kick, or kick, kick, punch, or punch, 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 kick, kick? What is the strategy behind the order, the difference with dodging and blocking? How should I be setting this up? The game doesn't give you any idea of why you should do things this way or that way. It feels very trial and error. And when I was getting my ass beat in these fights, I don't know if it was because I was picking the wrong strategy in terms of my actions, or if I just hadn't trained enough. I didn't know what it was. And I feel like there's this very tedious cycle of working so that I can get money, so that I'll have food, so that I'll have the energy, so that I can train. But then I train and then I'm out of energy, and I need energy, and I need to work, but I need energy for work too. And just, it's like, I found it all very, very tedious. And what made the whole thing so much worse was I hated the writing. This loves the 80s. I had a cat that was convinced it was Sylvester Stallone. I just did not jive with the humor of this game at all. So every time characters were talking, I just couldn't stand it. I did not want to listen to any of these characters talking. Love the pixel art. I think it looks great. But I wish I had a better idea of what the fuck I was doing in it. I am still... The thing is, the way it starts and all that, I feel more compelled to go back and check out the first Punch Club. Because I think I played a bit of that and thought it was alright. But I feel like it's more crucial that I go back and play that instead of jumping into Punch Club 2. And then the last game is Parkitect Deluxe Edition. This is a classic amusement park management sim where you are creating rides and attractions and all of that. The problem here is that it is a bit of a buggy mess on Xbox. The first time I loaded it up, I launched it, it just got stuck on the loading screen. Didn't even get to the main menu. So I closed it, reopened it, it made it there. And then when I was going through the tutorial, made about halfway through, and it got stuck on me placing a bit of pathing, some concrete, and I could not back out of there. So I couldn't advance the tutorials that were popping up, and I couldn't not do, all I could do was place this path. So I had to close it out, reopen it, all my progress in that tutorial gone, start it up again, another issue of that ilk, and it's a bit janky, and janky in a way that is enough for me to say, if you like these kind of games, because what I played when it worked seemed decent. I like the very simple, blocky, polygonal aesthetic. It's got a nice little look to it. The actual menu navigation and stuff like that, when it worked, felt pretty alright on controller. But the fact that there are these various bugs that made me lose progress and stuff like that, hopefully it gets an update that irons out these kinks, because I would like to give it some actual time. I like games like this, and I can see potential in it, but in its current state, it's too rocky of a road to want to go down. That is it in terms of what I've been playing, so that will do it for this here episode of the Pixelated Sausage Show. Once again, I am Marcus Nez. Y'all can find me pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you enjoy this here show or any of the stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/PXS. You get access to a monthly Q&A, some fancy Discord roles, a Cool Kids Club channel exclusive for the Cool Kids Club, and other random goodies here and there, or you can just support me to support me if that is your fancy. That is again patreon.com/PXS. In addition to the Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. But that is it. That is all. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed this here episode, and I hope you have both a wonderful rest of your day, a lovely rest of your week, and a wonderful weekend. But for now, adios, arrivederci, bye bye.
It's go time. Go daddy. It's go time.